Hi guys, welcome back to episode 17 of Two Girls One Crime. I'm Emily. This is
I
Megan.
am Megan Easterday.
And today we are talking about Dr. Death, also known as Christopher Dunch. Megan's going to get into a lot of the background, and we're obviously going to talk a lot about this case and this man because it is quite scary, and I do not want him as my surgeon. But yeah, we
I don't think
both have
anyone
never
even
heard.
wants him as a doctor, let alone a surgeon.
Correct. Yeah, we both had never heard of this before, but it is quite extensive, and we are excited to talk about what we can with you guys in this time that we have. So, Megan's gonna start on a little background on his life.
Okay, so he was born in Montana on April 3rd of 1971. Father was a physical therapist and mother was a school teacher, so a little bit of that area in the medical community with dad. He had three younger siblings, and he came from a wealthy suburb in Memphis, Tennessee, very close and near and dear to my heart.
Down the road.
Just down yonder. He went to Millsaps College in Mississippi to play football, and he was good enough at one point to go to Division I school, but unfortunately he just decided not to because it became too much for him. It was a lot of work, all those sorts of things. He earned his undergraduate degree in 1995 and enrolled at the University of Tennessee Health Science Center. One thing I think we should talk about is that Tennessee is one of the leading states for medical things. And this gets to be very interesting when we get to the trial. So
Yeah.
just keep that in mind. So he earned his MD, and he was among the top 12% of the medical school graduates in his class. So pretty high on that list. He spent the standard 5 years on neurosurgery and 1 year learning general surgery. He was a neurosurgeon who performed spinal surgeries at Baylor Regional Medical Center at Plano, and he also was at Dallas Medical Centers and other northern hospitals. So he went to school in Tennessee, went and did residencies, all that fun stuff in Dallas area, and kind of stayed there. And again, really keep in mind what they're talking about in terms of how he was the top 12%. He did all kind of the standard medical procedure stuff. So just keep that in mind. So, going more into his career, he earned his doctorate in molecular biology and a medical degree, again, at the University of Tennessee Medical School. He worked at the school as an assistant professor of neurosurgery, and for a little bit more of a timeline, moved to Dallas in 2011 to work at a spinal institute, and he really focused on back surgeries in particular. He also, prior to kind of this position where he mainly dove into actual surgeries, he focused on medical research that contributed to a lot regarding spinal surgeries, and he contributed to a lot of published papers. One thing that a lot of his colleagues kind of touch on throughout the trial, just talking about who he was as a person, he was seen to be like extremely arrogant, where he kind of had this claim or this ego where he called himself the best spinal surgeon in the area. He, again, did really well in school. It wasn't like he was the best doctor on the entire planet, and we'll get to reasons why he was a horrible doctor. But he just was very arrogant. We'll get into that, and it will make more sense. But he was, at the time, a extremely arrogant guy. And also, it later came out that a lot of times when he was practicing and doing surgeries, he would abuse drugs and alcohol the night before procedures and get involved with something where he would go into his surgery hungover. He'd wake up and in some cases possibly was still intoxicated while doing these surgeries, which I thought was so fun to think about. One final thing to add, just being, obviously we've gone through this guy's whole career, but he in 2011 met his wife, Wendy Young, who was 27. He was 40 at the time. They talked about marriage quickly, then they moved in together within 3 months, and then started having children, got married, all those fun stuff. So there wasn't much discussion about what life with her was like after all of this stuff started coming out, and also all of this came out. Like, he got away doing this stuff for a very long time, but there was just something to note where he was very successful full on the outside, marriage, kids, was making like $800,000 a year. So he seemed like he had it all. And then, of course, we get into how he messed that all up. And wonderful Emily's about to ruin our entire day with this next section.
Sorry, everybody.
That's what we do, is just ruin everyone's day.
Exactly. Yeah. Sorry to those listening Sunday at 11 a.m. Central. But yeah, so I'm going to kind of start with talking about his career and like the hospitals he worked at, which Megan started to do. She also talked about, kind of his life leading up to moving to Dallas, but he did originally take place in a lot of biotech startups and was in about $500,000 of debt. So then, like Megan said, in 2010, he moved to Dallas to kind of focus on the neurosurgery side of things. And his wife, Young, came with him on the move. Like Megan said, he seemed very qualified on paper. He had done all the training, everything, all of that to get through medical school. He did lie on some parts of his resume.
So this is where we get into...
We're starting to get into the
little oopsies.
Yeah. So he lied about what honors he graduated with, but the main thing he lied about was like the actual program that he did. It actually didn't exist at the time. Like it existed now, but not at the time. So that was a bit fabricated.
What do you mean a bit? Let's not give this man...
That was very fabricated.
Let's not give this man just a little. Let's give him a lie. That was a big lie, especially for a doctor. It's not like I'm going up to him being like, oh, I got my degree in teaching special ed, not teaching. You're a doctor.
Yeah, no, it was not good. But honestly, that wasn't even the worst part. We're about to get to the worst part. So he decided to join this team at Baylor Plano, the hospital that Megan mentioned. He started out with a very poor impression on all of the fellow doctors and surgeons. Like Megan said, he was pretty arrogant. He always boasted about his talents and like abilities, even though he was the newest one there. And now we're going to start on the patients that he operated on. The first one was a man named Kenneth Fennell, who we'll talk about again later, but he was operated on by Duntsch, and he was left with chronic pain on the wrong part of his back. He was not operated on the correct part of him. He was left with chronic pain in his back, and he actually had to go back for a second operation. Oh, there's my pizza. I'll finish this part. He later had a second operation done by him as well, where he was actually left paralyzed in his legs. And he required months of rehab with a cane, but could never really walk more than 30 feet without help or stand more than a few minutes without falling or help. So clearly this is not good. But this is
we can even start with maybe this is an oopsie. Like, we just made a mistake, which isn't okay.
No, it's not okay, but also, like, surgeons are people too, so, like, you never know, but this is not...
Can we get a bumper sticker that says surgeons are people too?
This is like the least bad of all of his things. Next up is someone named Lee Passmore. He was actually a medical investigator for Collin County in Texas. He experienced a lot of chronic pain and limited mobility after Duntsch cut a ligament that is not normally touched during the procedure he was getting. So again, this man worked at a minimally invasive spine institute, so he was not supposed to be doing some of the things he was doing.
But here we are. He still is.
His ligament got cut, one that's not normally, you're not even supposed to be around. There also was like a hardware that was misplaced in his spine and like incorrectly located, which is also not good. And if this screw or like hardware was removed, Passmore could have bled out. A vascular surgeon named Mark Hoyle, who was actually in on the surgery, later recalled that Duntsch was like, he seemed to have no idea really about the warning signs or like the potential bleeding out that Passmore could live through. And Hoyle actually told him to his face that he was a dangerous surgeon. So I think that's interesting. That's only the second one, and we're going to talk about a few more. Next up, we have Barry Morgoloff. He was an owner of a pool service company who was left with bone fragments in his spinal canal. Not supposed to happen. after Dunch tried to pull out a disc in his back with a, grabbing tool. That's also not supposed to happen. I'm not a surgeon, and I know that's not supposed to happen. Morgulov was not offered any pain medication, and when he asked for it, Dunch told him that he was a drug seeker and didn't give him the pain medicine. Another doctor who was actually in on the surgery said that Dunch was making mistakes and that he seemed inebriated.
See,
there's so many things wrong here.
It just is two things with this, right? Where usually with that, first of all, why are we taking tongs and pulling things out of people's backs that shouldn't be pulled out?
A disc.
Yeah. The disc. Even sitting here thinking about it gives me chills.
Literally, when I was typing this up.
Yeah, and also with drugs, I feel like most times after surgery, and I've never had a surgery, they're pretty good about...
I have, and I can tell you.
Yeah, and they're pretty good about, if you're saying, I'm in pain, I need something, they'll give it to you.
Yeah, correct. They gave it to me. I mean, I had double leg surgery, but they gave it to me, and I took it one night. I was like, I don't want to take it more, but they were like, you're going to need it.
You must be a drug seeker then, according to this guy.
Oh, that's what he would have told me.
Yay!
Okay, next up, we're going to be talking about Jerry Summer, which this one is, kind of sad to me, extra sad, because he was actually a friend of Dunch who came in to have, two vertebrae fused. Things went wrong, and Dunch actually turned him into a quadriplegic. That's so horrible. Anyways, it's horrible on, a million levels, but this is, a friend of his. The anesthesiologist who worked with him said that Summers actually lost 1,200 milliliters of blood, which is about 24 times the typical amount lost during this, same surgery. Which is horrifying.
Keep going.
He passed away.
Sorry, guys. I was reading ahead in the notes, and I had a question, but you could keep going.
Yeah, so Summer actually died in 2021 from surgery complications, which is, it's horrible on so many levels, but, he just killed his friend. That's horrible.
So was this the same surgery or two different surgeries?
No, it was the same one. Yeah, it was, surgery complications, so, I don't know exactly, it didn't go into detail, obviously, but it must have been something, obviously, that he did inside the body that just led to him, unfortunately, passing away.
That's so sad.
So that's not good. We're going to talk about one more. This one's making me really sad.
We talk a lot about murders, and we're on episode number 17, and this one kind of eats me up inside.
I know. It's sad because, what am I on? Number, 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm on number 4, and this is at one hospital. So the last one we're going to talk about at Baylor Plano that he did was a woman named Kelly Martin. She actually underwent a routine operation where he cut through her spinal cord and severed an artery inside of her. He continued to work on her even though it was obviously clear that she was losing too much blood, and she ended up bleeding to death from the surgery. So clearly not a good track record at Baylor Plano.
It also just kept getting worse. It started with, okay, you could argue it was just a horrible mistake, horrible surgery accident, and then it ends in 2 people dying.
These aren't accidents anymore. Yeah, like you said, it was okay, like I said, surgeons are people too.
Yeah.
But, I don't know, everybody makes mistakes, but not 6 mistakes on this in your field of work. So
No.
Not good.
So obviously after this, his surgery privileges were revoked by Baylor Plano, where he was working at the time. He resigned so he wouldn't get fired, which is what a lot of people do when they're doing bad things, and so that his name didn't appear in any of the databases out there that were saying that he was problematic doctor or a physician, where it kind of flags them of, hey, they've made a couple mistakes, they've gotten surgery privileges revoked, so they can kind of just move on to the next chapter, if you will.
Yes. Unfortunately.
Yeah, very horrible. Don't know why it's a thing, but apparently it is a thing. So after this, he went to the Dallas Medical Center, which is where we talked about earlier. And when he came here, he was granted temporary privileges until he could obtain his records from Baylor Plano. So pretty much meaning that he was able to perform surgery and they were just waiting on records for him to fully confirm, oh, you're good, you can keep doing what you're doing. So some red flags came up pretty early on until his time at the Dallas Medical Center, and a big part of that was nurses thought he was on drugs, is what we talked about earlier. He was seen to wear the same scrubs 3 days in a row, which sometimes you could argue is he's just busy, doesn't have time to wash his clothes, but he also was acting as if something was going on. He lasted there for less than a week, and in that week he had caused 2 deaths. So 2 people had passed away at this time in less than a week. Less than a week.
And this man stresses me out.
Yeah, he stresses me out too. And that's not okay. It's horrible, but things happen all the time in medical and surgeries and all that stuff. But 2 people by his hands. So, Floanna Brown's artery. So she's one of the people. Her artery was severed, and she had massive blood loss. He attempted to stop it, but ended up causing her to have a stroke while this was all occurring. She was left in a coma for hours and was brain dead before he did anything to help her. So pretty much just left her, and then she ended up passing away.
She was literally like in the ICU in a coma, and like nurses kept being like, you need to come like do this, this, and this, and he just like
let her die.
Moved on to the next woman who he also
ended up killing. So Mary, and if I'm saying this wrong, I apologize, but Effrund, she was in for a spinal fusion, and during that, her nerve root was severed, and she was left paralyzed. She later recalled waking up and claiming she was in pain, and like they do in hospitals, they do it on a scale of 0 to 10, where is your pain? And said it was 10 plus, and that nobody did anything. So there's 2 more people to add to the list, so I think that's 7 total. At this point, he left many others in either serious conditions, maybe they were paralyzed, chronic back pain, or they were dead. And there were several hospitals after these where he continued to cause problems or not perform medical procedures properly and ended up with individuals dead or worse off, honestly. So at this point, his medical license was revoked, and he decided he was going to move off to Denver, Colorado, new state, figure out what to do next. And at this point in his life, he was about $1 million in debt. He also, while living in Colorado, was arrested for a DUI, and he was arrested for shoplifting as well. So his life went very south after all of this had occurred, which honestly, he shouldn't have gotten away with a lot of it for as long as he did, but thank God that it started, there was some justice that started to kind of push through.
Yeah, so starting kind of on the justice side of things, in March 2024, 3 of his former patients who we talked about, Mary Efford, Kenneth Fennell, and Lee Passmore, they all filed separate federal lawsuits against the hospital, Baylor Plano, saying that they allowed him to perform surgeries even knowing how dangerous he was, and so many of the nurses obviously said he seemed to be under the influence, inebriated, on drugs, all of that. So the hospital still let him perform, and that's what they were filing lawsuits against. The Texas Attorney General actually filed a motion to intervene and defend the hospital, and the suit also claimed that the hospital, Baylor Plano, was making about $65,000 off of every single surgery that he made. So clearly this was sort of like a money side of making, like, they were making a lot of money for every single surgery that he performed, no matter the outcome of it. So that kind of made me a little bit mad about how, for a lot of mad how they were kind of pushing it under the rug so that they could continue to make more money. And that the Attorney General in Texas was trying to run the hospital as well.
Like, I understand why they go about defending this stuff because they want to protect a hospital's reputation and all those things. And at the same time, so many people were left dead or paralyzed, and it's like they made so much money off of these surgeries, and now you're just sitting here trying to defend yourself, being like, oh, well, it just didn't, there was complications, there's nothing we could do.
Right. No, it was the surgeon. Anywho, do you want to get into some arrest and charges, Megan? And the
Yes. So, in July of 2015, he was arrested in Dallas, and he was charged with 6 felonies of aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, and this relates to all the surgeries that had occurred. He also was charged with 5 counts of aggravated assault causing severe bodily injury, 1 count of injury to an elderly person, and in February of 2017, so about 2 years later, he was found guilty of aggravated assault and injury to an elderly person, as well as intentionally harming a patient, where this individual in particular was Mary, who was 72, and I believe she had the spinal fusion. And one thing a lot of people argued, and there's so much that goes into these crimes, right? But one thing a lot of people argued was, why was he never charged with murder? Especially because he did kill 2 people. Whether or not it was him wielding a knife, cutting them, versus him causing them to pass away during a surgery, a lot of people think that he should have been charged with murder. But because of the crime and how it all went down with him medically causing harm to individuals, they believe that these charges would be a lot easier to prove in court. And we'll repeat this again in our frequently asked questions section. But a murder or a homicide charge was the same as these 5 charges of aggravated assault and causing severe bodily harm. So either way, it was easier to prove, and on top of that, he was getting the same sentence no matter what.
Right.
Obviously, even just listening to you read over the 5 people or 7 people or whoever that were harmed in this experience, it just gives me such an icky vibe.
Yeah. And I only named a few. Like, there were a lot more that weren't, we know some of the ones that I listed because they were some of the ones who did those,
who spoke out.
Lawsuits, thank you.
Yeah.
But there were so many more that either weren't listed or weren't, injured as badly in comparison.
Well, you can also think about how maybe there's people out there who have no clue that there's any connection to this, because I know it's a smaller place. It's not like this is some big medical institution like the Mayo Clinic, for example, but there could be people out there who just got the surgery and they were told that this happened, and they still have no clue that he intentionally or unintentionally really messed them up for life.
Yeah. And a lot of times, when you go into surgery, they're like, this is what could happen, and these are, the complications. This is what could be positive. It could work, this percentage or whatever. So they must have chalked some of them up to be like, oh, you get chronic pain after this hip.
Exactly.
This spine surgery or whatever. I'm just thinking back to the surgeries I've had where it's okay, it's this % success rate. I don't know. I've never had anything on my spine, thankfully, especially by this man.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I don't know. It's just...
I don't know. And it's very uncomfortable, and the fact that he just did it so many times. And I even think about if you ever get in a car accident, right? And let's say you cause someone to be paralyzed for the rest of your life, that's not even intentional. It's an accident. And this guy was intentionally or unintentionally, we don't really know for sure.
He was showing up to work on drugs or hungover, or I don't know. It's not good for people. Exactly. Yeah. This is like not a mistake.
Well, I would
Maybe
be
the
curious.
first time was a mistake, but it's not after 7 people plus.
Yeah, well, I would be curious with his wife, if his wife just let him go to work or he would act fine. And again, wife stays out of the picture. I know a lot of the family, right, after all these crimes come out, and many times they disappear or they just do not speak to the press at all. And I'd be so curious to see if wife knew about any of this stuff and was just kind of, oh, okay, whatever, just... I don't know, or he's telling me he's all fine.
Did he come home from work and he's like, these surgeries went great?
Yeah,
like, oh.
What did he say? Or was he saying, oh yeah, I caused someone to die today? Or how would he go home? Would he go home and just be all smiley and, oh yeah, this person died today? Or would he be upset and sad, and would he feel, I took a human life by accident?
Right. And it's crazy to think that there were so many people that were in on the surgeries who were like, oh,
he just let him keep doing it.
He didn't seem to know the consequences or whatever. I'm like,
see, the only thing
I understand that's scary sometimes to like stand up to surgeons, because there's a stereotype about surgeons where they're just like flat people and like don't have humor, or like you can't really seem to like talk to them in that way. So I don't know if it was something kind of like, oh, he's higher up than me, I can't say anything.
Honestly, that's what I was gonna say, is that maybe
like
they just kind of thought... what are you gonna do? What are you gonna say? You're in there
to make sure that the person doesn't tank, so it's like, I don't know. It just seems a little...
It's depressing.
I don't like it as someone who's had surgery and like doesn't know what's going on in there.
Well, I think this causes... you to be very careful about the individuals you see, and there are so many other stories like this where doctors are inexperienced, or there's even a documentary we watched before with the fertility doctor who was impregnating women, and that could be one we could talk about one. But it was a doctor who, Spark Notes, a doctor who impregnated women who were trying to get help to get pregnant with his own sperm, and it was like hundreds of people. So similar thing where they didn't think anything of it. They were just like, oh, this guy helped me, he gave me a child, I'm so happy. And then they find out years later that he has kind of in some ways ruined a family in many respects.
I just looked it up to see if I could give the name of what we were talking about, and unfortunately there's like 5 that pop up about.
That's not a good thing.
Donald Klein, I think, is the name that we're talking about.
Yes, that is his name. Donald Klein.
There's also one from the Netherlands, and then 3 more from the U.S.
And this is just a couple. This is from one Google search.
This is these are the ones that have been found out. Like, I'm sure there's so many more that will be found out. Just, like, so much information anyways now with, like, Ancestry.com, all of that.
Yeah.
So,
well, with that being said, like how we always transition after every discussion is we're going to go into our frequently asked questions. Should we start doing that for our like intro into that?
I love it.
Spice up the pod a little bit. So
watch Rocket 18 when we start doing that.
Okay, I'm in a very singy mood today, if y'all didn't notice. Yeah. So anyways, our first frequently asked question is, how did he get away with this for so long? Like we said, he went to multiple hospitals and did it with so many patients at multiple hospitals. A big part of it was because hospitals failed to communicate with each other. There wasn't as much, and I'll give hospitals this, there wasn't as much direct communication as there's now, where we can go into MyChart, email different doctors, do stuff like that.
All of mine are linked together.
Exactly. They can all talk to each other. They all have those contracts where it's not as much of a thing as it was back then. Well, now it is, but back then it was not a thing. So they struggled to catch his mistakes when they were happening in the moment. He also resigned instead of getting fired from places so he could get hired somewhere new, and there wasn't a bunch of red flags popping up of, well, you you did something, we can't let you practice. So that was a big reason why he got away with it for so long and why he continued to get hired at different hospitals.
Yeah. So the next one is, did any doctors try to stop him? 2 of them did. Dr. Randall Kirby and Dr. Robert Henderson both noticed that there were like major errors in his surgeries and reported him to the Texas Medical Board, which is very brave of them, I will say. This eventually kind of started and forced an investigation, so very good on those 2 doctors who reported him and kind of started finding out all of the stuff about him.
For sure. And we'll talk about, for another question, well, we can go into this one now, but a lot of people ask, was he just a bad doctor or was he a criminal? Did he actually mean to commit these crimes, or was this purely accident after accident? The person Emily named Dr. Robert Henderson, who was the doc that they called to fix his work, testified at his trial saying, and this is a direct quote, he did virtually everything wrong, so to be able to do everything that wrong, I felt that he must have known at some point in time how to do it right. So a lot of people out there think that he did actually know what he was doing. He just was a really messed up individual who thought he would do these things, get away with it. His defense team did try to argue that he was poorly trained and inexperienced, but 2 things there were he wasn't honors, but he did go to a medical school, and on top of that, there is the fact that he had 5 years of surgery experience, and he had 1 year of general surgery, as well as residencies, I'm sure, that I just did not name. So the lack of training and inexperience doesn't make sense, especially from what he was claiming what was happening. And you would think that doctors would hopefully do their research on surgeons, but who knows?
Right. Correct. Another one was like, can we learn more about him or this case? And there actually is a lot on him and like this case and cases like it. Peacock has a show out called Dr. Death, which I have actually heard of before because if you watched Dawson's Creek, you know Joshua Jackson, and he's actually Dr. Death in this show. And so that was like a fangirl moment for me because I've totally heard of this, but I never put it together. And there's also a podcast with the same name, Dr. Death. So I thought that was interesting because I had heard of this show before because I love Joshua Jackson, but never watched it clearly or else heard of this case, and now I will have to.
Wonderful. Shout out to those 2 shows. Hopefully we'll get a shout out in there. Maybe we'll be on a podcast and they'll be like, oh that podcast
episode, I would die.
I hope that it happens for you. He might hear. We've got followers now. Wonderful, please do. So the next question was, why again wasn't he charged with murder?
Also, it's so dark.
I know it's while we jump back in, guys, too, apologies for getting so dark while I'm out here. I'm sitting outside and it literally looks like I have a black screen around me. Anyways, so he wasn't charged with murder because there wasn't really a strong argument that he was planning on murdering individuals, but there was a strong argument that he was intentionally harming an elderly person. And again, like I said earlier, a homicide conviction carried the exact same penalty, but there wasn't enough evidence to really rule it as homicide, so he could have gotten away with it compared to it just being he intentionally harmed individuals.
Yeah. Ugh, this gives me the shivers. Where is he now? He is serving time at the OBLS unit at the Texas Department of Criminal Justice in Walker County, Texas. So he is serving his time. He's not a doctor, thankfully.
I also believe he's eligible for parole in like 2040 something. So, and so he's got a while, and on top of that,
in that database.
Yeah, he wouldn't be able to practice anymore, but I'm sure he would probably be very old, or he would be dead by the time he gets out.
Yeah, that is not good. This man scares me.
Well, thank God he's not our doctor. Well, On that lovely note, like we always end it, we appreciate you all listening. Hopefully these last 2 episodes you've enjoyed, that we haven't really talked as much about murder, a little bit more about something different. And if there's any crime, doesn't need to be murder, but if it is, feel free to leave a comment and on YouTube, TikTok, wherever you listen to, Spotify, and let us know, because we love researching new ones, and these were 2 fun new ones. Well, this one was a very fun one to discuss for the 2 of us.
Yeah, there was a ton of information. And they're fun, that like ones that we have never heard about or lived through. So it's fun to like, we always say fun. It's not fun, but it's fun for us.
Interesting.
Because we like to learn about crime.
We do.
There were just so many like levels to this one. So we appreciate you guys listening. We hope you enjoyed. And yeah, like Megan said, leave any suggestions on any type of case that you want us to talk about, and we will happily do it for you.
Yes, and we will see you next week. Thanks again.
Bye, everyone.
Goodbye.